Tensions between Israel and Iran have long simmered, a volatile mix of geopolitics, ideology, and security concerns. This long-standing friction recently ignited with a series of Israeli airstrikes targeting Iranian soil. Details remain shrouded in the fog of war, with both sides tightly controlling the narrative. What is clear is that this represents a significant escalation, pushing the region closer to the brink of a wider conflict. The strikes, which reportedly targeted facilities linked to Iran's nuclear program, sent shockwaves through the Middle East. This action marks the first time Israel has openly acknowledged such an attack on Iranian territory. The strikes, regardless of their intended impact, represent a dangerous gamble by Israel, one with potentially dire consequences for the entire region. The immediate aftermath of the strikes has been dominated by conflicting accounts and a lack of clarity. Israel, citing security concerns, has remained tight-lipped about the specific targets and the extent of the damage inflicted. Iranian officials, while confirming the strikes, have downplayed their impact, claiming minimal damage and no casualties. Independent verification remains elusive. International observers and media outlets have been largely unable to access the targeted sites. This lack of transparency only fuels speculation and heightens the risk of miscalculation on both sides. Iran, facing a complex geopolitical chessboard, has so far responded with a mix of restraint and carefully calibrated retaliation. Publicly, Iranian officials have condemned the strikes as an act of aggression and vowed to respond decisively. However, Tehran seems acutely aware that a full-blown conflict with Israel would be catastrophic. Instead, Iran appears to be pursuing a multi-pronged strategy. This includes diplomatic efforts to rally international condemnation of Israel, while simultaneously signaling its readiness to retaliate through its proxies in the region. This calibrated approach allows Tehran to project strength while carefully managing the risk of escalation. Section 4. The world reacts condemnation and calls for calm. The international community has reacted to the Israeli strikes with a mixture of condemnation and calls for restraint. The United Nations Security Council has convened an emergency meeting to address the crisis. However, finding common ground among the permanent members, with their often divergent interests, remains a significant challenge. The United States, a staunch ally of Israel, has expressed understanding for Israel's security concerns while urging all parties to exercise restraint. European powers, while condemning the strikes, have also called for dialogue and de-escalation. The lack of a unified international response underscores the complexity of the situation and the difficulty of finding a peaceful resolution. Section 5. A looming humanitarian crisis? While the immediate focus remains on the geopolitical implications of the strikes, there is growing concern about the potential humanitarian fallout. The targeted facilities, although linked to Iran's nuclear program, are located in populated areas. Any escalation in violence risks inflicting civilian casualties and exacerbating an already dire humanitarian situation in the region. Furthermore, the strikes threaten to disrupt critical infrastructure, including power grids and water supplies, further impacting the lives of ordinary civilians. The international community must prioritize the protection of civilians and ensure unimpeded access for humanitarian aid organizations. Section 6. The precipice of war. The Israeli airstrikes on Iran represent a dangerous escalation in an already volatile region. The path ahead remains fraught with uncertainty. While neither side appears to desire a full-blown war, the risk of miscalculation and unintended consequences remains high. The international community faces a critical test. Diplomacy, backed by a credible threat of consequences for any further aggression, remains the only viable path to avert a wider conflict. The stakes could not be higher. The future of the Middle East, and indeed the world, may hinge on the choices made in the days and